What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast, the number one American football podcast on the island of Ireland. Week one of the NFL is in the books, and it did not disappoint. Jimmy English, delighted to be joined by Stephen Kearns, and for the first time on the Gaelic Gridiron podcast, Davog McKee. Dave, good to see you. You are a regular contributor on our website, but it's the first time we've had you on, so thank you for coming in last minute as a super sub for Kevin, who couldn't be with us. It's hard to believe that we're back with NFL after such a break, but it did happen. We've had 4 fantastic days of football between last Thursday and this Monday, and at the time of recording, it's Wednesday night, and this will be going out on Thursday morning. So we're getting back into the action already when this podcast does go out. But lads, how are we feeling after week one?
Good. There was some absolute craziness week one with different teams, which we'll touch on during this chat. But just something different when football starts, when the season starts. You know, the atmosphere changes, your weekends are, more charged. You're like, yes, it's football. Whether you play fantasy or not, whether you just bet money, or whether you just sit down and watch the Octobox or watch one team. Nothing beats a Sunday watching football.
Dave, how are you feeling about the NFL being back?
Buzzing, Jimmy. Just to, everything that Kieran said there, to be fair. What do you call it? It's a weird time because like the first couple of weeks of September, you're normally sort of trying to get into it and maybe watch out what teams really did in the draft. You sort of turn yourself off over the off season. And after this week, it felt like the first year where I've properly sat down and I've actually reviewed, who's done what and free agency and stuff. So I sort of do tend to take a backseat in the off season, but it is counting down the days and weeks, just as we do on the podcast as well. Counting down the days and weeks when we can actually start watching the Steelers game. But when the Steelers aren't playing, my TV's I'm glued to the red zone. Red zone's just, it has to be. It's a Sunday tradition for me at this rate. So, it was really enjoyable, obviously, getting to see how other teams are doing as well. So
it's definitely a special time of the year when you sit down for the first time and 5 o'clock, 5:30 for your pre-game, and you have your main game, whatever team you're following, and then you have Red Zone on the second screen. And I think a lot more NFL fans in Ireland are doing that now. You see it all over Instagram where they have 2 or 3 screens on the go. But it was definitely a mental first Sunday back. I think a couple of hours before the games kicked off, we had a flurry of activity. We had poor Tyreek Hill getting arrested literally on his way to the stadium. We had Jamar Chase announcing he would play. And then we had Dak Prescott becoming the highest paid quarterback in the NFL somehow. Not something that I necessarily would agree that he has earned. But look, I'm not Jerry Jones. What can I do? Lads, I'm keen to get your thoughts. Obviously, we're a few days removed now from the first weekend, the first proper weekend of the NFL. What stands out to you as being some of your top moments or top performances? Dave, I'll go to you first.
Just from week one.
From week one.
Well, obviously, with the Steelers playing, my eyes was firmly... I didn't even have Red Zone on at 6 p.m. I was just watching the Steelers game. But I have to say, I was very surprised at the Chicago performance. Like, I was looking at that game, sort of, following it just on the phone, and I couldn't believe. I think there were 14 points down at half or something like that. It was a real strange performance. And then I looked at the stats afterwards. Caleb Williams is supposed to be an accurate enough, he can be a bit erratic, but I couldn't believe. I think he only threw for 93 yards. That was one game that really took me by surprise. So having said that, they did come back and win. You have to give them, some sort of, praise for that. But it's a real eye opener to show that you can't just walk into this league and expect everything to go as rosy as it did in college. So he has a couple of things to learn from that. But apart from that, either from the early window and stuff, it was quite the eye opener for me. And then obviously the late window, we had the Cowboys with the Browns. I was specifically looking at that game because I knew with a loss for the Browns, we would be sitting at the top of the division. So that was one game I had my eye on in the late window. Tom Brady's performance is a bit,
hit
whether
or
that
miss
stands or not. But yeah, that was it for me, really.
Twist, it's great seeing the Steelers being top of the AFC North after after 1 week, despite how lackluster the offense was. I mean, the defense balled out, of course, as we knew they would. TJ Watt is an all-world defensive player, best defensive player in the NFL, hands down. Aside from the Steelers, and obviously I want to get your thoughts there as well. Dave has touched on a couple of interesting results and performances. What's top of mind to you as some of the more interesting results from the weekend?
It's going to start with the Saints dropping 47 on the Panthers. Everyone was expecting Bryce Young to have a bounce back year to really shake off the specter of being picked over CJ Stroud by the Panthers, and just couldn't do it. Probably the funniest moment of that match is you can find it all over Twitter. The Saints are I think it's Alvin Kamara's just running up the field, and a Panthers linebacker trips and tackles a defensive lineman who trips and tackles a cornerback. So there's a conga line of them just tackling themselves, trying to stop Alvin Kamara. It was just a joke showing by the Panthers. I feel sorry for Panthers fans and anyone in Carolina. It's going to be a rough season. Outside the Panthers, I think just because, Steelers fans and you love seeing the Browns suffering, seeing the Browns fans pining, begging Baker Mayfield to come back to Cleveland because he's gone to Tampa Bay and he's balled out last season.
Absolutely.
This weekend he put, I think it was 33 up on the book on the Commanders.
Four passing touchdowns, 295 odd yards, I think. And he looked like he was fully in command of that offense, which is, I'm delighted for him. I've always liked Baker Mayfield, even when he was in college. Just love his energy, love his swagger. And it's great to see him succeeding outside of the toxic dumpster fire that is the Cleveland Browns organization. I mean, he had a good year in relief in Los Angeles before he went to Tampa Bay. So it's great to see his career progressing and he's doing well.
Yeah, it proves he was the player coming out of college that if you gave him the weapons and gave him the thrust, that he could actually perform. And he's showing it in Tampa Bay last year. And it looks like he's on to a hot start this year. And probably the other one is poor Daniel Jones. Poor, sweet, innocent Daniel Jones. The best thing he done this offseason was grow a beard. There was Giants fans all over social media burning his jerseys. Giants fans waited for several hours outside of the stadium to boo him as he left the stadium. The front office are doubling down, saying he's staying as quarterback.
They've no choice after paying him, really, do they, Dave? I mean, they've given him so much money that if they go backwards now and they put Tommy Touchdowns or whatever his name is,
Tommy DeVito,
they'll never be able to recover from that publicly. So they've no choice. It's the same with the Browns organization. I mean, Deshaun Watson is clearly not starting quarterback material in the NFL anymore. But after forking out so much money, you can't back down, really, can you?
Yeah, the Twist just touching it as well. It's, the Browns, I keep saying the Browns, but the Panthers and the Giants are currently vying for the worst run franchise in the league. I mean, they're both stuck. I mean, the Giants have just paid Daniel Jones. They have to stick by that contract. It's a salary cap based league. I mean, they just can't cut him. They have to make a decision there eventually at some stage. And of course, the Panthers are an absolute mess. The only good thing for the Panthers is, of course, they've got Bryce Young on the rookie contract. Very small. He's not as accurate as people anticipated from what his days was in college when he was playing under Nick Saban. And to be honest, it's just one of those things where they're just going to have to, suck it up and realize, this season is already a dead. Like, if you're losing to your divisional rivals in the first game, getting blown out by how many points?
Yeah,
it's not looking good. To be honest, I'm a bit of a betting man myself, and I had the Panthers plus the points, and it was beat after one quarter, and I don't think I'll back them for the rest of the year.
That was a bold move to bet on the
Panthers. Bold move,
it
but
didn't pay off you, Gare Cotton.
It definitely didn't. Like, I just maybe it was I was sort of looking at the Saints and I thought they were maybe one of the teams that would fail this year. I mean, I think, is it Dennis Allen's the coach there? I anticipated that he would probably be the first coach to lose his job this year, and it's not looking that way as well. So
no, I think that'll be Matt Rule. That'll be Matt Rule and the Panthers, I think.
Yeah, they'll be them two franchises at the moment. They've got, they've fallen into that Cleveland Browns a couple of years ago where they were getting rid of quarterbacks left, right, and center. The Johnny Manziel era. That's the way I'm looking for both of them.
So what you're saying, Dave, is in 3 or 4 years you're going to see a Panthers jersey with 14 quarterback names tacked to the back like the Browns used to have.
Exactly. 0-16, 0-16, or 0-17 in this case for the
At least
Panthers
they'll
this
have
year.
their
Looks like
first round pick if that happens.
they'll get
The
that back,
crazy,
but yeah.
the crazy thing about the Panthers about Bryce Young is he's the same height as Kyler Murray is in the Cardinals, and Kyler is he's just as athletic. Perhaps Kyler Murray is slightly more athletic, but you have to wonder how a quarterback like Kyler Murray can succeed in the NFL and be quite a reliable, dynamic starting quarterback, and yet Bryce Young just cannot get it right. I mean, he did have a consolation touchdown in garbage time where he tumbled into the end zone, but at that stage, who cares? Like, you know.
Well, I mean, you look at it the big way. Some players, or some teams and managers and front offices and fans expect number one pick goes in, he has to play straight away. That does work. There was a study done where people who first round picks who get thrown in straight away, it's not always a success. They may end up playing 5-6 years and then they're cut or traded and bounce around the league. A very small percentage make it to the elite status, the Hall of Fame status. I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. He sat behind Brett Favre for how long before he got on the field? Roethlisberger sat behind Maddox till he got injured. Brady behind Bledsoe, you know.
Yeah.
So it does help to sit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, look at poor Joe Burrow. He got thrown in his rookie year and got his knee destroyed.
Yeah.
You know, so you're really gambling throwing a young guy in. You know, it's not guaranteed to win all the time. And you kind of feel sorry for Bryce Young. He gets thrown into, you know, the deep end of his rookie year. They get absolutely beat down. That alone is hard to recover from mentally for a young quarterback. And then you have the conversation of Bryce Young versus CJ Stroud. That hanging over his head as well. So there's a lot of mental stuff there that he has to deal with. You have to remember he's still young, as Dave pointed out. He's on his rookie contract. He may bounce back. It may not be this year, maybe next year. He may bounce back and develop into that player that he's supposed to be. But it's going to be a rough road for the Panthers.
Just to jump in here, Jimmy, it's really about he's a sort of a product of his own environment. I mean, he's come into a franchise there, the Panthers. They have been downhill ever since they got the Super Bowl 50 against the Broncos. It's been going downhill since then.
I forgot about that.
They haven't really got any weapons. Offensive line is really not anywhere where it's supposed to be near the top. If you look at all the categories, defensively and offensively, they're just at the bottom of everything. So it's I feel sorry for him because at the same time he's a first round pick. He's going to the worst franchise in the league, potentially one of the worst run franchises in the league. I mean, what they sacked their head coach early last year as well. They've got Canales in from the Bucks from this last year. Did help Baker a lot, but it just seems like it's a franchise and at all seasons. It's difficult for any quarterback. I think Tom Brady touched on it in commentary last week. Sorry. You really have to, Lamar Jackson's a good example. He gets drafted last pick in the first round. He goes to the Baltimore Ravens, a well-run franchise.
Yeah.
He's coming in with John Harbaugh's running the roost there for years. Settled franchise, and it's going to work out better compared to when you're at a franchise like the Panthers where it's all at sea, you know.
And you can say the same about Anthony Richardson and CJ Stroud as well, going into well-run organizations. I mean, you look, obviously Anthony Richardson missed his rookie season last year, but when he came back and started in week 1 this season, he wasn't perfect, but that 60-yard bomb down the field was just crazy. Yeah. So I think himself and CJ Stroud are going to be in the conversation of best quarterbacks in the league in a couple of years' time. Very, very short years' time.
That game was probably one of a contender for game of the week. How close that was, like a divisional week 1 match, and it came down to the wire with two talented quarterbacks. You know, the Colts are going to be scary this year, so don't sleep on them.
With the exception of the Panthers and possibly the Falcons, given how poorly Kirk Cousins performed against the Steelers, and maybe he'll bounce back. The NFC South could be an interesting one to watch this year for the NFC Championship game. When you look at Derek Carr, obviously against a much weaker opponent, but he was out there throwing touchdowns for fun. Such a really impressive performance, and he seems to have settled in well after being with the Raiders. And then Baker Mayfield as well. So it's definitely a division to watch, I think, for this year.
Definitely. You can no longer, I know I've said it for the past year, maybe 2, that it's the worst division in football. It's kind of bouncing back slowly. Like it's no longer like anyone's game. There's actual contenders, and that now this is only week 1. Like the Saints could.
Exactly. It's a microcosm of what we have ahead. 21 more Sundays, as our friend Michael McQuaid likes to say.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I do tend to agree with both of you what you're saying about the NFC South, but in my opinion, I think the NFC is a lot better now than it was maybe a couple of years ago. I mean, if you look at the NFC West, the Niners, the Rams, I think the Rams are a good sleeper pick this year. Obviously, I think Puka Nakua's pick up an injury, but they've still got a lot of offensive weapons. Sean McVay is a great head coach. As well as that, the NFC North is vying with the AFC North for being the toughest division in football. You've got the Lions, the Packers, the Vikings, even though with Sam Darnold. Again, you go back
He had a great game, actually. That's why I say Kev is raging he couldn't come on, because he'd be vindicated after me shitting all over Sam Darnold last week.
Yeah,
Sam Darnold, I mean, this is another one that you have to look back and, he was drafted by the Jets when the Jets were up an absolute dumpster fire. And, he goes around the league, goes to the Panthers, ends up being, terrible in the Panthers. And then Kyle Shanahan thinks, right, I'm going to have a bit of him, takes him over to San Francisco. There was talk about him even taking over, if Brock Purdy didn't play well. And now he's at a stable franchise like the Minnesota Vikings, and he's playing well. I know it's only week one, but somebody's seen something in him in college, and he's a first-round pick, and why not? Why can he not go in and battle with, whenever JJ McCarthy does recover, why can he not go in and battle with him for the number one spot as quarterback? So it's another one of those arguments where it really matters where you get drafted and where you're playing at. Your surroundings matter more than yourself, if you like.
100%.
And how much time you have to develop as well, which Sam Darnold has had loads now. So
quarterbacks aside now, I know, Dave, you mentioned before we came on that you had Malik Neighbours in your fantasy this week, and he let you down.
Marvin Harrison.
Marvin Harrison. So disappointing performances for some of the non-rookie quarterbacks in the league this week.
Yeah, Marvin Harrison was a guy that I got in my fantasy team, and he failed to, what was it, twist one catch?
4 yards, no touchdowns.
And interestingly, I think he only had 3 targets, so Kyler Murray really wasn't looking out for him. Let's hope he can bounce back. I mean, he's a special talent. His dad was a special talent in Indianapolis. And I hopefully for my sake and for others' sake as well, that's sort of dealing with my pain at the moment, he can bounce back. But, these rookies are going to need time. I mean, we're saying it with Caleb Williams. He needs time. Jaden Daniels wasn't great. He's going to need some more time.
Two rushing touchdowns, though.
Yeah, the mobility is there. As I say, if you're going to win in this league, you've got to be able to step back in the pocket and throw. Bo Nix had a decent week. So it's really about giving these rookies some time to embed into their new surroundings, and let's hope Marvin Harrison Jr. is one of those that will. I think he will eventually, because if you look at that receiving core in Arizona, nothing really to shout about. I think Greg Dortch was the top receiver this weekend. So I think eventually it will come to roost, and Kyler will start throwing on the ball more.
But you can give Malik Neighbours all the time in the world. If Daniel Jones is back there, he had 5 catches for 66 yards. That's all he had. When asked about it in the post-game press conference, he was quoted saying, "I don't know what's going on back there. I'm just trying to get open." So
that's not really
Daniel Jones
a ringing endorsement of your quarterback or offensive line if you're publicly subtweeting your offense. But I think a receiver who kind of flew under the radar a little bit this week, possibly because I think he was given the marquee names coming out of college, he was potentially slightly overlooked, is Xavier Worthy out of Texas, who went to the Chiefs. I think he had 2 or 3 touchdowns, and
he had 2, one on the ground and one in the air.
He had some sort of ridiculous stat line that I don't have in front of me, but I mean, the Chiefs were looking for speed after losing Tyreek Hill, and I think they found it in Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, he ran I think it was 4.4 or less, in a 40-yard dash. And I mean, Buffalo gave the Chiefs Xavier Worthy. Buffalo gave the Chiefs Patrick Mahomes. What's wrong with the Buffalo Bills that they gave two of the the Chiefs needed speed and someone with hands to contend, to give Pat Mahomes that chance for the Chief Pete or the three-peat, and they just gave him this superstar, and then they gave him their franchise quarterback as well.
He's ridiculous. I love watching him in College of Texas. He's a product of what was Big 12. What was a Big 12 offense, or what was an SEC offense in a Big 12 conference. So I think it's like you say, why give the Chiefs another weapon? They have enough weapons as it is.
I was watching that game on Thursday night, and I was thinking. I mean, if you think back to last year, the Chiefs during the regular season they do tend to switch off in around October, November time. I think it's more. I hate to say you hate to you know tell a team anytime, but maybe they're underplaying their performers because they just think, yeah, we're going to win the division. It's that easy. Um, if you look at their roster this year, I mean, Rasheed Rice is another
Yeah.
year older. He looks very good. Travis Kelce, of course, he's getting on, but at the same time, they've still got great tight end options. There's a Watson, the guy Watson, and Noah Gray as
Yep.
well. They've got Pacheco in the backfield as well. I mean, they actually look. It's a worrying sight for the league when the Chiefs have that depth now in all positions. Of course, they got our old friend Juju as well. They've got him back from
Yep.
his
Re-signed.
terrible time in New England as well. So it's not a good sign for the rest of the league when the Chiefs are going to be purring in September, October, November time, because once January and December hits, we know what happens. The only good thing I will say is the Chiefs lost to the I was going to call it Oakland Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders, Christmas Day last year. Who plays the Chiefs in Christmas Day this year? It's the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's
Well,
one
it
thing I will
bodes
say.
well for us, and I've already informed the family that Christmas dinner will be early this year in order to facilitate the 6 p.m. Irish time kickoff, and I'm sure every NFL fan in the country will be glued to their televisions for that one. Just before we wrap up last week, there's a trifecta of Steelers fans on this podcast, so we have to talk about what happened in Atlanta on Sunday evening. Defense twist, absolutely almost flawless apart from that touchdown. Two massive interceptions from new signings in Deshaun Elliott and Dante Jackson, and TJ Watt just doing what TJ Watt does. And if he keeps that up, he has to. There's no way in hell they can't not vote him for Defensive Player of the Year. What were your first reactions after the game?
Happy that we won. Top of the north end of week one. Concerned that there was no touchdown scored.
Yeah.
Boswell is the Wizard of Boz, but he cannot.
AFC Special Teams Player of the Week. It was announced today.
But we can't win the division and we can't win playoffs just by the strength of Boswell's leg. Now, Fields, he played manageable football. He had one fumble which he recovered on a snap. Other than that, he kept the ball clean, didn't turn it over, didn't lose it. He interestingly had a higher quarterback rating than all the AFC North quarterbacks and Caleb Williams. So he had a higher QBR.
Not really a high bar though, is it?
No, but you're looking at it going, okay, there's some progress there, some hope there that he can get this offense moving. That's the big thing. It's not like the Steelers, of 2006 to 2009. The defense is able to turn the game around, but the difference with that team was the offense was able to score touchdowns. Now they may not have been perfect, and the defense did carry a lot of that, especially on the Super Bowl runs. But you need to score touchdowns, and that's the big thing the Steelers were missing. TJ Watt was flagged for offsides. The referee admitted to him at halftime that he made a mistake. He's that fast. He just moved. The two things I will mention: Kirk Cousins looks scared, genuinely scared every time that ball snapped and he seen TJ Watt moving. He looked like he was flinching or expecting to get hit hard. And TJ Watt had his first sack to close a game out in his career. And he said the bow that he done before his signature leg kick, he looked around to make sure no refs were going to flag him before he done it because he didn't want to give them that time back. He's a scary player, we all know it. I feel sorry for Bo Nix on Sunday. That rookie is going to see number 90 all day long. But we're probably not going to see Wilson unless Justin Fields messes up on Sunday. The Steelers are very protective of calf injuries, and that's what Wilson has. I have a feeling we will see Wilson at some point during the season. It's not going to be the Field show all season.
See, I disagree, Dave, and I'd be keen to get your thoughts here. I think Mike Tomlin has a tendency to ride the hot hand. We all know that. That's one of his many catchphrases. And I think Justin Fields, he did enough to earn himself the starting job. Obviously, Russell Wilson the calf injury is still lingering, but when it comes down to it, making a decision, which way do you think the Steelers lean if and when Russ comes back healthy?
Yeah, I sort of sit in between the middle of you. I mean, I still believe this is Russell Wilson's team. I still think Tomlin can be he can be very true to his word in terms of, and he'll be very loyal to whoever he selects. And I think he did mention at a point last year where depth chart and stuff, it doesn't matter. I think he will be where whoever he sets at number one is that depth chart. That's their team, and I do think whenever Russell Wilson is 100% healthy, I think he will originally look at maybe their both each player's statistics and records. You have to go with a Super Bowl champion, in my opinion. I know we haven't paid him anything. We don't have to play him. We don't owe him anything. But I think the fact that he announced Russell as a starter in preseason, I think that does mean that he's edging towards starting Russell whenever he is ready. When that will be, I don't think we will take a risk on him. Of course, if Fields completely, it comes out on Sunday and doesn't play as effectively as we know he can, then maybe he might switch up. But I think at the end of the day, I think in the back of Tomlin's head, he's thinking this is Russell Wilson's team and we're going to start building around him. As well as that, I think if we look at Fields' progression, whether he's going to get to the heights that we want him to get to is another question ultimately. But I think again, I'm rooting for whoever comes out under center on Sunday and comes out and plays as well as they can.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see what transpires. I think Alex Singleton is the bigger danger in the middle of the defense there for the Broncos. He's like our TJ Watt. He had a gift of an interception. I think it was against the Titans, where Will Levis literally threw him the ball and he jogged into the end zone on the interception. But look, what transpires remains to be seen. Dave, I'm with you. I think, although I do lean towards Justin Fields as quarterback, I will, of course, wholeheartedly support whoever is under center. Looking ahead now to week 2, and I can't believe it's only week 2. So much happened in week 1. We still have it. We're only at the very, very beginning of the NFL season, and there's a couple of tasty matchups in store this weekend, including the AFC clash between the Chiefs and the Bengals twist. And I think this is an early test for Joe Burrow and that offense to see if they can live up to their destiny as the only AFC team or indeed AFC team who can potentially get in the way of the Chiefs this season, because the Ravens couldn't do it on Thursday night, just gone. How do you fancy the Chiefs' chances, or the Bengals' chances even?
Well, first of all, look at it this way. If the Bengals win, everyone gets to cheer the Chiefs losing. If the Chiefs win, Steelers fans get to cheer the Bengals' demise. So it's a win-win for the majority of the fans. I don't think Burrow has it in him this early in the season to topple the Chiefs. They struggled week 1. Jamar Chase was a non-factor. Joe just looked rusty. But I don't know whether it's an issue with the play calling or with the game plan. But when you have the Chiefs who are rolling in with, as Dave listed off, the players they have, especially the speed they have now, I don't think the Bengals defense will be able to shut down Mahomes and that speed. There's just too many weapons on the field at any one time. And even then, if you do manage to cover the majority of the weapons, you then do have talented guys who are on second level, like Juju Smith-Schuster. Like he almost got a touchdown in week 1. It was batted out of his hands. He still has the talent. He's not too old. He does have injury issues, but he's always a threat when he's on the field, especially in the slot. So unless the Bengals do a complete 180 from last week, unless Jamar Chase is featured as number 1 in the game plan, like throw the ball to Chase 80% of the time, I don't think the Bengals are going to do it. I think the Bengals are going to roll into week 3 0-2.
Dave, what are your thoughts on this marquee AFC North or AFC matchup? Would you agree with Twist, or which way are you leaning?
Yeah, having said that, watching last week, the Bengals couldn't move the ball. They seem almost stuck in neutral. Obviously, with Joe Burrow's injury, his wrist, I think there's been a clip going around social media of him trying to pick up a Gatorade bottle and he couldn't do it. That wrist doesn't look fully healed. I mean, how long does it normally take for a wrist to heal? He's been to a Super Bowl, and you have to give him credit for that at such a young age. But the guy is just made of glass. I mean, he gets hit and he's down, he's injured, he's got bad ankle. Like, I mean, and you have to say, he's part of that, product at LSU, were probably potentially the greatest college team of all time with all those weapons. Your Jeffersons, your Jamar Chases, of course, Patrick Queen. Shout out Patrick Queen. But like it's I just can't see how is the Bengals at home? Are they? Or is it in Arrowhead? I think it's in Arrowhead,
sure.
isn't it? I think it's in Arrowhead. I'm not in double check.
It's in Arrowhead, Cincinnati.
It's in Arrowhead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly just haven't even hearing that. I don't have any trust on the Bengals. How can you when you lose to the Patriots? I mean, the Patriots last year
and
were almost
you lose to the Patriots and Jacoby Brissett and a bunch of C-list receivers and running backs.
Crazy.
And a rookie head coach.
Offensive diarrhea is what I would call the New England Patriots. I mean, it's if you're losing to the New England Patriots, I mean, I know we did last year, of course. Having said that, but if you're losing to the New England Patriots, where Pat Mayo, what's his name? Is it Mayo? Gerard Mayo. Gerard Mayo. If you're losing to Gerard Mayo, rookie head coach in week 1 at home, when every team when you're expecting to win, I've got no faith in you. So yeah, I'd be taking the Chiefs in that matchup.
Another couple of interesting fixtures this weekend. The Cowboys and the Saints, 2 NFC winners from the week just gone. And it'll be interesting to see if Derek Carr can repeat his heroics against perhaps a sturdier defense in the Cowboys. And we have as well, just look at the fixtures here, the Vikings 49ers. That'll be an interesting one as well, Twist.
It will. I mean, Christian McCaffrey, the Madden curse acts fast. He's already out. Now, in fairness, the 49ers were still able to ground and pound the ball anyway with him out. The Vikings defense can be stout. They swarmed the Giants. They kept them like less than 10 points. Some of the Vikings players were quoted after the game saying they felt sorry for Daniel Jones halfway through the game. So the Vikings do have the ability to go and cause an upset. And Sam Darnold actually can play football. He is a quarterback. He does have the ability to play. Vikings could upset the 49ers.
Would you call that an upset, though? I mean, perhaps if it was week 1, but given how well they performed on last weekend, would you really? Is it really going to be an upset? I mean, the Patriots and the Bengals, that's definitely an upset because 9 times out of 10,
it's an upset because you have the reigning NFC champions going in facing a backup quarterback, who's been pushed into the starting role unexpectedly. Yes, he does have like JJ on the outside that he can just JJ's down the field somewhere and just hook the ball and he's going to come up with it. But it is going to be an upset in terms of because it's Sam Darnold. Like all the sports betting books and all that are going to put the San Francisco as heavy favorites, because of that. So I think it would be classed as an upset in that aspect. But I don't want to disrespect the Vikings because they do seem to be, working well with Sam Darnold, and their defense, as I said, worked great.
Finding ways to win.
Yeah, that's it. As Al Davis said, as much as I hate the Raiders, just win, baby.
Yeah, just jumping in here, Jimmy, just about the Niners and the Vikings. It's an interesting matchup because there was so much noise surrounding the 49ers all off season, with Ayuk and what was happening with Brandon Ayuk. A lot of noise coming out of it, obviously, with Brock Purdy. Can he continue on that impressive form? They've answered all questions in my eyes during that week 1 obliteration of the Jets. Let's be honest. I watched the first quarter. I started getting tired, as you do. But having said that, Brock Purdy is consistently proving me wrong. I watched him, of course, week 1 last year against the Steelers, and I remember before that game I was saying, yeah, win, easy. We're playing Brock Purdy, who's
look
coming off. Look what happened. I mean,
Look what happened.
Yeah, it was. I jinxed us. What can I say? Apologies to us.
I'm kind of glad we're not. I'm kind of glad we didn't actually start in Acrisure at home to start this season, because I think there's a little bit too much expectation perhaps when you start at home, given what happened against the Niners last year, a complete just meltdown. So I think it was advantageous to us in a certain way being on the road in that Falcons environment, because it was everyone was saying it on the broadcast. It's a tough environment to go into, and we were the underdogs, I think, in that match. So to go in there and silence the Falcons in such an emphatic manner, and with Kirk Cousins at quarterback, I mean, that was a statement win for the Steelers, I think, and should give us a bit of a boost going in there to face the Broncos and a much less established quarterback.
Yeah, like I think we were 2.5 point underdogs in the game. I know you said the silence, the Falcons, the stadium felt like 80% Steelers fans. As you say, we're so well travelled. I mean, the noise was incredible, it seems like, in there. But really, really impressed with just coming back on the Steelers. You know, TJ Watt. I mean, I don't really feel like you can put into words how good he actually is. I mean, he is bar none. I know, like, it seems that Micah Parsons and Myles Garrett and Nick Bosa get so much of the rundown, but TJ Watt is constantly not being talked about the media, and I just don't know why. He's had the most sacks in the NFL since his debut. And he just doesn't seem to get talked about. And he's going to be an all-time great. We know that. Whether he gets the respect, we can't control that. But just an amazing player, and I'm so proud that he's part of our team.
And he loves to drop back in coverage, and which the other guys don't do. And you can see that from his interceptions, his bat downs and stuff. But on the Atlanta game, when the Steelers Nation travels so well that Atlanta have to use a hard count in their own building,
a silent count.
Silent count, yeah, in their own building. Sorry, not hard count. Silent count in their own building. That shows you how well Steelers Nation travels. My only concern going against the Broncos, it's not really Bo Nix. It's Patrick Queen was non-existent against the Falcons, and we need that middle linebacker core to close those gaps, stop runs. He was one of the lowest rated players of Week 1 by PFF. I don't like PFF, but they rate him like one of the lowest rated players out of all of Week 1. He just didn't show up.
And was that twist, you think, just to do with the game flow, which you wouldn't necessarily presume, because, I mean, the Falcons ran the ball, they went heavy run with Bijan Robinson, or was it just perhaps he hasn't gotten settled into the system yet, or he was just taken out of the game there up the middle?
I'm hoping it's just he hasn't gotten settled in the system. I did see a lot of Ravens fans when he announced he was signing, they were like, good luck with the missed tackles. It was apparently awful for missed tackles in Baltimore. And when I watched the game back, because I was listening to it driving from mother-in-law's birthday, because I couldn't watch it live, I was listening to it on the audio stream. When we went back and watched it, at one point, he clearly misses an open tackle with Bijan. Like, he just slides off him as if Bijan's like covered in grease. And I was like, there it is. That's what he's known for in Baltimore. So I'm hoping it's just he's still getting acclimatized to the system, but he does need to really knuckle down and set up, because that's one thing the Steelers are known for is, Hayward, he gets in there, he disrupts the backfield, or he just jams up the middle and forces everything to the inside to the linebackers.
And there's another highly underrated player, and I'm so glad that we paid him what he deserves and he can retire as Steeler, and hope to God, maybe not this year, given our quarterback situation. You never know. They do say that defense wins championships. This might be the year we finally get back and lift it on Lombardi, not just for Cam, but for TJ as well. I mean, if anybody in the league deserves a championship, it's that man.
This way, the Steel Curtain racked up 4 Super Bowls.
Yeah, but they did have Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, though.
I know, but our defense also helped Ben win too. So, you can't win without a good defense or a stout defense. I will say one game to watch for that we haven't touched on is the Lions and Buccaneers. That's going to be a big one.
Yeah, potential NFC divisional round there.
At least divisional.
Yeah, well, it was a rematch from last year's, I think, wasn't it? I remember watching that game, and the Bucs went into that building. Detroit now is up there with Philadelphia.
I think you're right, Dave. I think I remember watching that in the States when I was over there.
Yeah,
The
it
Bucks
was
put
a
the fear of God into the Lions.
very last game or very last play of the game. Baker Mayfield stepped back. I think it was a 4th and long, and through the last play, and I think it was intercepted, if I remember. But they came that close to beating them, and that as I was just saying, Detroit is now up there with Philadelphia as the toughest place to play. I mean, I watched that Sunday night football game. My speakers from my TV is probably broke because of the Detroit noise. It's crazy. So it's mad how like a franchise, not even 10 years ago, crazy bad where they own 16. Maybe sometimes in the noughties. Now is one of the more. They're in my humble opinion, I think they're nailed on to be NFC Championship game. I think they're that good. So many good weapons, great defense, young offensive line, great parts all around the place. So that's a game I sort of pictured out. I think the Bucks and the Lions is going to be a great watch, and who knows what Baker Mayfield will get. I hope we get there. Just as you said at the start of the podcast, Jimmy, massive fan of Baker Mayfield. I love how he goes into Cleveland, things don't work out. He's constantly getting called out by the media, and then he has to sort of make his journeyman. Carolina, Los Angeles Rams, and then before you know it, he's found his saving call with the Bucks. And he's got a big contract as well. So I'm happy to see when players are punched up against it and they come back and they're even better. So
absolutely,
I'm a big fan.
I think it's just a vibe you get from him. He just loves football. He loves balling out, and just watching the Bucks game there on Red Zone last Sunday, just you could see that that's his team, And
I'm sorry, Browns fans, he's not coming back to Cleveland. You burnt that bridge.
But especially the big shoes that he had to step into, if you think about it, because he was his predecessor in Tampa Bay, who won a Super Bowl, Yeah. So it really is a great story. So on that basis, do we think, who are our predictions then for championship games? NFC, Dave.
I think the NFC Championship game is going to be a replay of what we just watched on Sunday. I think the Rams at Detroit would be a great. Both teams being fit, Puka Nacua I'm a massive fan of him. I think with both teams fit, that would be an NFC Championship for the history books. I think I'm tired of the usual Philadelphia, San Francisco, being up there. I just want to watch something different, and I think my pick I did mention a couple of weeks ago. I do think the Lions will reach the Super Bowl, but that is my NFC Championship game. Rams at Lions, and I think you should take that to the bank.
I was wondering when you were going to drop that in. He's gone the entire podcast without saying it. You couldn't resist slipping one in, huh?
Who knows? That's just my saying, apparently. I don't know where I've got that from, but yeah.
Twist, do you agree?
I think NFC Championship game is going to be Eagles-Packers.
Oh, okay. Jordan Love gets back to full health?
Yeah, that gets back healthy. Packers go on the road as wild card, hit the championship game, possibly Super Bowl.
Interesting. Very interesting. And then on the other side, we have the AFC, and I think Chiefs, obviously, but I think the Texans are going to surprise everyone. And I think young buck at quarterback and CJ Stroud, definitely of that generation, he's the most advanced quarterback. You look at the weapons he has, just absolutely ridiculous. He has Stephon Diggs now as well, who I think had 2 touchdowns on Sunday, looking every bit like his old self. So I think it's going to be, I think Texans are the only team, for obviously, and we keep saying this, it's only week 1, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but it won't be the Steelers, it won't be the Ravens, it won't be the Bengals. And Anthony Richardson, I don't think is quite there yet, because it really is only his first season, if he can stay healthy. So I think it's going to be the Texans, the Chiefs, and I think the Chiefs will do it.
I agree. I was going to say Texans Chiefs AFC Championship game, but they'll fall to the Chiefs.
No one can stop the Chiefs.
No,
make it a hat trick. I love that pick. The Texans are. I was just watching, obviously, I didn't get to watch the full game, of course, but I was watching the highlights. I mean, CJ Stroud is no joke. I mean, no sophomore slump. No. I think he's as good as they come. And Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Joe Mixon at running back. Defense is sharpened up. Great secondary. I love the Texans this year. So, yeah, Chiefs Texans is mine.
And don't they have a running back called Tank Bigsby as well? Is that the Texans?
I think that's the Jags, the Jaguars.
Jags, is it?
I think
Okay,
him.
yeah.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Another AFC South outfit. I can't believe we've gone the entire podcast without talking about Aaron Rodgers' return. So before we wrap up, let's just look back a little bit on that. Lost to the 49ers in his return. He stayed healthy, which is the main thing. I think they take on the Jags this weekend, if I'm not mistaken.
No, the Browns take on the Jags.
Sorry, it's Jets Titans. So it's a nice and like an easier return for Rodgers to maybe make up for a disappointing return, Dave.
Yeah, no, to be honest, just obviously I did get to catch the first quarter, but I was impressed with the Jets' pass protection in the first quarter. They did, I think they had an original 3 and out, but when they did score, I think Breece Hall pounded in for a touchdown. Rodgers did have a lot of success with the pass protection. I have to say, they've clearly improved in that. I think it's Tyron Smith they got from the Cowboys, who's a Hall of Famer level, left tackle. He's a clear great addition. So I was impressed with their pass protection, and I think it's going to be important. Obviously, with Rodgers, he's at that age now. If he gets hit, he's going to feel it. So he's going to be in a hospital chair again. So I like what they've did on offensive line, and I was impressed with their pass protection in the first quarter. Whether they come back, whether they're going to be as good as everybody says, I don't think so. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team by all means. But I have to say it's going to lean a lot on how they're going to be able to protect Aaron Rodgers, and they've got a lot of good. They've got a lot of good. Not in the offensive line. He's going to have to sort of rely on Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall to bail him out a bit. But I like their defense as well. Of course, their defense has always been good. For years now. So if they can obviously keep well on the defensive side of the ball, and if they can look after Aaron Rodgers, I don't see why they can't make the playoffs, and especially in that division with the Dolphins and the Bills.
Yeah, it could be a dark horse for the playoffs this season.
I mean, Rodgers is in, top season form, losing to the 49ers. That's just tradition for him, I think the Jets, any chance the Jets had at making the Super Bowl run was last year. And with Rodgers gone, that window, I think, is closed. I think at max the Jets will make a wild card and they'll be one and done. The defense fell apart this week. They had a great defense. I don't think it's going to bounce back. I think the Jets are going to struggle for the rest of this year, especially in a highly competitive division that they're in. And I think if Rodgers doesn't even sniff the AFC Championship game, he may just hang him up at the end of this year.
It's definitely going to be an interesting storyline that NFL fans will be closely watching. As you say, it could be his. You have to wonder though, if he doesn't get what he wants, will he hang it up, or will he hang on for another year, or will he decide to himself, enough is enough? I have won. I'm not going to get much further on this Jets team.
Well, look at it. You obviously got to compare him to Brady, who played as late as he possibly could. He got 6. Rodgers has been to 1 and won 1 and hasn't seen the Super Bowl since.
Hasn't come near it.
So unless he wins the Super Bowl, he may gamble one more year, but I don't think it will be with the Jets. If he doesn't get the Super Bowl this year, he's going to bounce to another team. Whoever will take him. Maybe the Browns will give him 3 first-round picks and $230 million guaranteed for Aaron Rodgers for a year.
The sight of that, him coming out in a Browns uniform, scary for him, not for everyone, not for anyone else.
Yeah, his career's over if he goes to the Browns. I mean, I love Aaron Rodgers. He's. I think people do tend to fall in love with the personality more than the actual play. I mean, of course, he's done some magnificent things on the field. You look at some of the Hail Marys and the special plays, rolling out to the left, slinging it. Devontae Adams, his time in Green Bay. I think people do tend to fall in love with the personality more than the actual play. I think with the noise and stuff he makes in the media, his interviews on the Pat McAfee show, he's more of a personality now than an actual player. So I think
than a quarterback.
He's not going to win. I was going to say I put my life on it. I wouldn't go that far, but I would put money on it. He won't win another Super Bowl. He won't get another sniff. But
no,
he's great. He'll be great for remembering that play, that Hail Mary and stuff. But he won't be remembered as being a great player, at nowhere close to Tom Brady, in my opinion.
No. Well, we're back into it Thursday night again. Week 2 rolls on, so we'll be back to catch up and have a chat about how those games went in a week's time. Dave, thanks again for jumping in last minute. So it didn't just become the Steelers show with myself and Twist.
Always a show anyway. Still,
oh yeah, well, there's always a little bit of that. Lads, thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the football this week, and we will talk soon.